Chapter 587. Ugh. Gu Mengmeng moaned, feeling a splitting headache. Xiao Meng. A warm embrace immediately hugged Gu Mengmeng. Then, Gu Mengmeng heard the deafening heartbeat gradually calming down, as well as a sigh of relief after surviving a calamity. Gu Mengmeng opened her eyes, gradually adapting to the light in front of her. She raised her hand, feeling a little lost. Dream realm, so that was what it meant. Elvis, let go of me. Gu Mengmeng's voice was so calm that it was frightening. Elvis's body stiffened, but he still slowly released his hand. She should be angry. As her first partner, he did not fulfill his responsibility to protect her. Gu Mengmeng turned around and sat up, looking at her 3 sons who were sleeping in a ball in the corner. They looked exhausted. They must be exhausted. Gu Mengmeng took up the beast skin that was covering her body and gently covered her 3 sons. Then, she walked out without saying a word. Elvis followed behind her quietly, the silence spreading in the air. Do you know? How does it feel to fall in love with yourself? Gu Mengmeng's gaze landed on the flat big rock at the entrance of the cave. There was a set of clothes made from snake skin drying there. Elvis did not say a word. He just quietly stared at the dark green snake behind Gu Mengmeng's neck, baring its fangs. Gu Mengmeng sat on the rock, staring at the set of clothes made from snake skin in a daze. The person who would reach out his hand and call her Tu Meng had now turned into a set of clothes. I thought I was just an interesting existence in his long life. But I never thought that I was the only color in his 1,000-year life. Gu Mengmeng lowered her head, smiling bitterly. He was really decisive. He actually used such a method to let me truly feel his care and persistence towards me. Gu Mengmeng did not turn back. Her eyes were still fixed on the set of snake skin. Her voice was calm, without any great sorrow, but it made one's heart ache. Do you know what the last sentence he said to me was? Elvis stood behind Gu Mengmeng. He did not even have the courage to reply. If not for him being too weak, he said that taking liberties with a married woman would really incur the wrath of the heavens. He would cut open his chest and take out his gallbladder. Gu Mengmeng did not cry. Instead, she smiled. Then, he told me thank you, he said, thank you for letting me live. He died for me, and now he's thanking me for letting him live? What kind of twisted logic is this? But now, I can't even blame him. Gu Mengmeng clutched her chest tightly and said, what should I do? I actually felt his love for me so deeply, but we had only been together for a mere month. In this 1 month, I never thought that his feelings towards me were love. I am Gu Mengmeng. I feel that I should feel guilty and cry. But Snake had passed all of his memories to me. In his memories, this last month was far more blissful than that long 1,000 years. His senses told me that as long as I lived, he was happy. So I wanted to laugh again. Now, I can't even tell if I am Gu Mengmeng or Snake. Am I a human or a snake? Should I cry or laugh? Elvis went forward and gently hugged Gu Mengmeng in his arms, saying deeply, I'm sorry, I couldn't protect you. I was too weak. Digression. Chapter 588. Gu Mengmeng wanted to lift her arms to hug Elvis back, but she felt her wrists were so heavy that she could not lift them. Sighing, Gu Mengmeng said, Elvis, let go of me. I want to wear the clothes Snake left for me. Elvis slowly let go, feeling a pain as if a layer of skin had been peeled off from his chest. Gu Mengmeng had always been protective of her privacy and only changed her clothes in the cave. Most of the time, even he had to avoid her. But this time, she actually stood in an empty space and took off the beast skin she was originally wearing. Then, she carefully put on the clothes made from snake skin. Gu Mengmeng tilted her head and asked, does it look good? Elvis nodded and said, Xiao Meng looks good no matter what you wear. Gu Mengmeng wanted to smile but realized that she could not. She sat back on the rock and squinted her eyes at the sun. Where's Leah? I haven't seen him since I woke up. Elvis said, he has some debts to settle. Gu Mengmeng asked, Cole? Elvis remained silent and did not say a word. Gu Meng Meng said, even if Cole broke his tail, he is still a 5th level beast. Just Leah alone cannot defeat him. With that, Gu Meng Meng looked into the distance and said, go find Leah for me. Tell him that I am waiting for him and ask him to come back. Elvis followed Gu Meng Meng's gaze and saw a rustle in the bushes. If one did not look carefully, they would think that it was just the rustling of grass in the wind. But a 5th level beast's eyes were extremely good. He saw traces of colorful snakes in the bushes. You. Elvis was confused. Gu Meng Meng lowered her head and did not look at Elvis's eyes. She just gently touched the back of her neck and said, sorry, I promised that I would only leave your mark on my body. But. Elvis said, Xiao Meng, Snake is the strongest among the kings. I did not have any objections to you mating with him. Gu Meng Meng shook her head and said, Snake did not mate with me. This mark is a protection mark, not a mating mark. Elvis frowned and asked, protection mark? Gu Meng Meng nodded her head almost imperceptibly and said, I was killed by Ellie and my bones were all broken into pieces. Even if I was saved, I would be half paralyzed and probably won't be able to stand up again. Moreover, Ellie's final bite was a self-inflicted poison. Even Snake would not be able to remove it in a short period of time. So, he used the simplest and most violent way to solve this problem. Elvis was silent. He did not know the whole story. He only knew that after Snake carried Gu Meng Meng back that day, the colorful snake blocked the entrance of the cave. When the snakes dispersed, there was only an unconscious Gu Meng Meng and a huge snake skin left in the cave. Gu Meng Meng calmed herself down and continued, he cut open his own chest and took out his own snake gallbladder to detoxify and prolong my life. Then, he poured 1,000 years of his cultivation into my body. Apart from the snake's slough, everything else was concentrated on this mark. Oh, even the snake skin is on me now. Gu Meng Meng said, do you know why he branded the mark on the back of my neck? Elvis shook his head. With Snake's arrogance, he should have branded the mark on Gu Meng Meng's chest and occupied that position. Chapter 589. Gu Meng Meng replied, because he wants to guard my back to prevent anyone from sneaking up on me. He said, he wants to be the pair of eyes that are open behind my back. Gu Meng Meng glanced sideways at Elvis and asked, isn't it funny? He's already dead and he's still talking about guarding. It's just a mark, what can he guard? Elvis was silent for a moment before he stretched out his right hand and transformed it into a wolf claw, before suddenly attacking the back of Gu Meng Meng's head. Ah! With a scream, Elvis fell to the ground. His wolf claw was covered in black venom and his skin started to corrode instantly. Gu Meng Meng turned around and frowned. She flipped over and jumped down, grabbing Elvis's hand and placing it beside her mouth. Then, she gently licked the venom on it. Gu Meng Meng's little tongue easily cleaned up the venom and at the same time, formed a transparent layer on Elvis's hand. Gu Meng Meng looked at Elvis quietly and did not say a word. But Elvis smiled and said, look, although it's just a mark, he can still guard your back. Gu Meng Meng sighed and said, don't do such silly things to punish yourself. You didn't let me down and you've already done enough. Elvis looked down and said sadly, but I didn't manage to guard you. Gu Meng Meng said, it's not your fault. In the end, it's the result of my willfulness. Elvis sat up straight and hugged Gu Meng Meng in his arms again and said, I swear, I will become stronger, and never let you get hurt again. Gu Meng Meng smiled bitterly and said, now. I have inherited everything from Snake, including his battle abilities and memories. In the entire beast world, I'm afraid no one can hurt me anymore. Elvis was stunned and said, you mean? Gu Meng Meng nodded and touched the mark on the back of her neck again and said, Snake has already merged with me as one. He gave everything to me and he gave it, very thoroughly. Elvis smiled bitterly and said, this should be considered a good thing. You don't have to worry about anyone plotting against you anymore. You also don't need me anymore. Gu Meng Meng hugged Elvis back gently and pursed her lips, saying, I've aged 1,000 years in one night and I'm still not used to many things. But there's one thing I know, you're my family and I'll need you no matter what. Elvis did not say a word and just hugged Gu Meng Meng back gently. Neither of them said anything. A violent sound came from afar, and it was rapidly approaching. Gu Meng Meng stood up and turned to face him. A huge python appeared in front of Gu Meng Meng, its head that was as big as a train's engine stuck at the tip of Gu Meng Meng's nose. If it was in the past, she would have screamed, but now, she just looked up calmly and said, "Didn't I tell you before? I hate snakes, I hate shit, I hate snakes that look like shit." With that, Gu Meng Meng slapped the snake's head, and the head, which was as big as a train, was slammed onto the ground with a loud bang, embedding about half a meter into the ground. Wabi transformed back into his human form and stood up. He rubbed his chin and pointed at Gu Meng Meng's nose. "Snake, I want to challenge you." Gu Meng Meng narrowed her eyes and sneered, "You can't beat me." Wabi's eyes were red. He seemed to be suppressing his emotions as he roared, "I don't care, I just want to challenge you. I want to defeat you and replace you as the master of the Snake King Valley." Gu Meng Meng nodded and said, "All right, you're the master of the Snake King Valley now. Aside from the topic, I've unlocked Gu Meng Meng's golden finger that all of you wanted." She now had all of Snake's powers, the powers of the only beast king in the beast world. She didn't need to rely on mating to protect herself. She could stare to death with just a stare, but, I want to know, are you happy after unlocking this heaven-defying golden finger that all of you have been dreaming of? Chapter 590. Wabi roared, "I don't need your charity. I want to snatch it myself." With that, Wabi attacked Gu Meng Meng. Gu Meng Meng just turned her body slightly and stepped on Wabi's back, causing him to lie flat on the ground. She looked down at Wabi from above and said coldly, "You are so annoying." Wabi's eyes turned red, but not because of anger. He rolled and transformed into a giant python to attack Gu Meng Meng again. Elvis wanted to join the battle but was stopped by Gu Meng Meng with a hand gesture. Gu Meng Meng tilted her head and looked at Elvis, saying, "This is what Snake owes him. I should repay him. Don't interfere." With that, Wabi's poisonous fangs were right in front of Gu Meng Meng. That gaping mouth had already enveloped Gu Meng Meng. One bite and Gu Meng Meng would be swallowed into his stomach. Then, the next second, the giant python landed on the ground with a thud, accompanied by a cloud of dust. The entire world was shaking and everything became a blur. Wabi was like a lifeless noodle being squashed flat on the ground. Elvis was not spared either as he was pressed flat on the ground, unable to move. Gu Meng Meng took a deep breath and retracted her beast pressure. She walked in front of Wabi and kicked him, saying, "So weak." Wabi slowly transformed back into human form but did not stand up. He just sat cross-legged on the ground and lowered his head, murmuring, "Thank you." Gu Meng Meng kept her ice-cold expression and also sat cross-legged beside Wabi, saying, "I have already found my son. Tomorrow, I will leave." Although Snake has never cared about this Snake King Valley, but this place was formed because of him after all. I don't wish for the Snake King Valley to collapse just like that. You can defend this place, right? Wabi glanced sideways and met Gu Meng Meng's eyes. He immediately lowered his head and stared at his own shadow. This was the only way he could continue imagining that the person he was fighting with just now and the person sitting beside him talking to him was Snake. "Since I did not win you, this Snake King Valley is still yours. If you want to defend it, you can defend it yourself. If you don't. Gu Meng Meng patted Wabi's shoulder. "Snake actually cares a lot about you." Wabi stiffened his neck and turned to the other side, not looking at Gu Meng Meng. "Mind my ass. He only thinks about his own release and doesn't think about what I should do. I've lived for 800 years, and I've fought with him for 800 years. He was my only goal and role model. Now that he's gone, where should I go with my life?" Gu Meng Meng sighed softly. She also knew that Wabi did not really want the Snake King Valley. He was just like Snake, too lonely. The duel became a strange way for them to care and communicate with each other. Even though Snake was the one who one-sidedly crushed Wabi-Ai every time, Snake had never killed him. Moreover, in the long 1,000 years without Gu Mengmeng, if there was anything that Snake could look forward to, it would probably be Wabi-Ai's frequent challenges. Gu Mengmeng remained silent for a moment before saying, "Sorry." Wabi-Ai harumphed but did not reply. Gu Mengmeng felt that some things had to be clarified, so she said, "I know, you and Ellie, but Snake killed Ellie because of me. I'm very happy that you appeared today. At least the people he cares about did not all die because of me." Chapter 591. Perhaps she was affected by Snake's memories, but Gu Mengmeng found it hard to stir up too many emotions. As for Ellie, Gu Mengmeng did not wish to talk much about it. She just continued asking Wabi-Ai, "Are you really not willing to stay in the Snake King Valley?" Wabi-Ai's expression dimmed. "Staying here to remind myself that I will never be able to surpass him?" Gu Mengmeng looked at Wabi-Ai quietly and sighed. "Then what plans do you have for the future?" Wabi-Ai replied, "Aren't you going back to Saint Nazaire?" Gu Mengmeng nodded. Wabi-Ai said, "I will go back with you." Gu Mengmeng raised her brows and looked at Wabi-Ai. "You know I hate." Wabi-Ai jumped to his feet and said, "Didn't you inherit everything from Snake?" "Everything from him includes my challenge. Let me tell you, unless I defeat Snake, you will have to answer whenever I challenge you." Gu Mengmeng stared at Wabi-Ai. She knew that without Snake, he would be the most upset person. So, Gu Mengmeng snorted in disdain. "You overestimate yourself." Wabi-Ai stared at Gu Mengmeng in a daze. He did not speak for a long time. He just quietly sat beside Gu Mengmeng, frowning slightly. "I know you hate snakes that look like shit. I will try my best not to reveal my true form in front of you. As long as you occasionally speak to me in Snake's tone like you did just now, and fight me when I really cannot bear it." Gu Mengmeng chuckled. She stood up and dusted her hands. Then, she slapped Wabi-Ai's back, sending him flying. She raised her head. So annoying. Turning around, Gu Mengmeng did not look at Wabi-Ai's expression. She only heard him shouting behind her. "Just you wait. One day, I will defeat you and throw you out of the Snake King Valley." Gu Mengmeng knew that Wabi-Ai was crying. The three little wolves had long been woken up by the commotion outside. They wanted to come out to see Gu Mengmeng, but were stopped by Elvis. When Gu Mengmeng returned to the cave, she found it hard to express her feelings. Her son, who was not even a year old, was now standing beside Elvis and looking at her. He still had the body of a child and looked to be about 4 to 5 years old. Snake's inherited memories told her that the children's physical abilities were stimulated by the sight of her in mortal danger, forcing them to upgrade. This method of leveling up by spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm was harmful to the body itself. Gu Mengmeng caressed her sons' faces and tried to confirm, "You are Hada." The one who looked the most refined among the three nodded and stepped forward, calling out, "Mother Beast." Gu Mengmeng forced a smile and said, "I saw it. You were the first to transform and rush over with your 2 younger brothers. But next time, I hope you can run away with your brother. Because if not for Snake's timely arrival, the 4 of us would have died there." In such a situation where there's a great disparity in strength between us and the enemy, it's wiser to protect as many as you can, understand? Hada shook his head and said, "We are males, we have to protect the females in our family. If I can't even save my own mother, I might as well just die." Chapter 592. Kanwa's eyes were the most similar to Elvis's, the same deep blue. Gu Mengmeng touched her son's little face and said, "Kanwu is such a brave child. But do you know? The blood of a snake is poisonous. You would have been poisoned yourself after biting Ellie's throat like that. If Snake had not given his blood to the 3 little ones while saving Gu Mengmeng would have to face the pain of losing her children the moment she woke up." Jiaoyu walked forward and hugged Gu Mengmeng's thigh. He looked up at his mother and said, "Mother Beast, don't worry. I will think of ways to protect all of you in the future." I won't let my brothers get hurt again, and I won't let Mother Beast worry again. I want to be the smartest Jiaoyu of Mother Beast and live up to the name Mother Beast gave me. Gu Mengmeng kissed Jiaoyu's little face and gently stroked his furry ears. Jiaoyu is so sensible. Elvis carried Gu Mengmeng up and stared coldly at the 3 little wolf cubs. He had to say that these little ones really knew how to make Gu Mengmeng like them. He could not comfort Gu Mengmeng no matter how hard he tried, but she became much better with just a few words from these 3. The wolf cubs who could talk were much more threatening than before. But, for the first time, he was glad that these 3 little wolf cubs were around. If they had not suddenly transformed and held Ellie back for a while, Snake might not have been able to save Gu Mengmeng in time. Your Mother Beast is tired and needs to rest. You guys go outside. Why? Canwa took a step forward and glared at Elvis angrily. We want to stay by Mother's side to protect her. Elvis gritted his teeth. I will protect my own female. Canwa did not back down. Is that so? Then where were you when she was in danger? Elvis's chest tightened. He clenched his fists tightly and could not say a word. Gu Mengmeng patted Canwa's little head. Canwa, you can't talk to Father like that. Although Canwa was indignant, he did not want to make Mother angry. So he lowered his head. All right, Mother, I understand. Gu Mengmeng squatted down and looked at her 3 sons at eye level. She said, Your father is very brave. He and Leah risked their lives to clear Cole's trap so that Snake could successfully rush to the scene to save us. Although they did not appear, it did not mean that he did not do anything. So, you can't think of Father like that, understand? Canwa raised his head and looked at Gu Mengmeng, then at Elvis. I'll give my mother face and not argue with you. Elvis frowned. Why was this brat getting more and more annoying the more he looked at him? Huda pulled Canwa back. Canwu. Said. And said Canwu. Let's wait outside for Daddy Leah to return. Gu raised her. Gu asked. Gu. Gu said. Father, Gu. And Gu. Gu. Gu Mengmeng found it funny, they did not call Elvis's daddy, but called Leah daddy. Gu Mengmeng found it funny. They did not call Elvis father, but called Leah father. Huda said. Although he did not mate with Mother, he is recognized by you and Father Beast. So we call him Father Leah. Gu Mengmeng nodded. Father Leah sounded different when it came from her and the children's mouths. Chapter 593. Gu Mengmeng turned around and looked at Elvis. She did not say anything and just pulled his hand. Elvis pulled Gu Mengmeng into his arms and kissed her hair. You have just recovered from your injuries, you still need to rest. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. My recovery ability is very good now, I don't feel anything strange anymore. Also, I don't want to sleep. Whenever I close my eyes now, Snake's memories will appear. Do you know? I can even see the previous messenger of the beast deity. Elvis lowered his head and gently rubbed Gu Mengmeng's temples. Not only did you inherit Snake's memories, you also inherited all the memories he inherited from his family? Gu Mengmeng nodded helplessly and said, yeah, but many of the images are very blurry. Maybe it was too long ago so I can't remember them clearly. But Snake's memories and his father's memories are very clear in my mind. Then. I feel like I was a male who loved the previous messenger of the beast deity, and a male who fell in love with himself after being lonely for 1,000 years, isn't it ridiculous? I'm even starting to suspect who exactly am I. Elvis's eyes were filled with heartache. He hugged and kissed Gu Mengmeng. You are my Xiao Meng, my queen. Gu Mengmeng's fingers gently touched Elvis's chest. The scar there had not completely faded. The healing ability of a 5th-level beast and a beast king was still very different. Does it still hurt? Gu Mengmeng asked. Elvis held Gu Mengmeng's hand that was rubbing the scar on his chest and shifted it to the left. Yes. Gu Mengmeng felt the heartbeat vibrating from her fingertips. She looked up and met Elvis's deep blue eyes. Pursing her lips, she said, "I don't want to lie to you and say that I'm fine. After experiencing that nightmare, I woke up 1,000 years older. I am very confused and uneasy. I don't know how to face the fact that Snake sacrificed his life for me. But I promise, I will slowly get better. Be it for you, for our sons, for Leah and the tribe, or for Snake." Elvis held Gu Mengmeng's hand and nodded. "I know you will get better. You will definitely get better." Gu Mengmeng did not reply Elvis. She just looked up at the entrance of the cave. Now, her hearing was extremely good. "Leah is back," Gu Mengmeng said. Elvis asked, "You have something to tell him?" Gu Mengmeng nodded and glanced sideways at Elvis, saying, "I know I promised to only have you as my partner in this lifetime, but I now understand how persistent a male can be when he is in love. Snake had only known me for less than a month, but Leah had already been by my side for half a year. If you blame me..." Elvis chuckled and did not let her continue. He just kissed her hair lightly and said, "I will never blame you. No matter what you do, I will support you. Whatever you want, I will find it for you." Gu Mengmeng nodded, deliberating whether she should say, "sorry," or "thank you." After hesitating for a long while, Gu Mengmeng said, "Hubby, I love you." Elvis curled his lips and said, "I know. Besides, I love you too." With that, Elvis let go of Gu Mengmeng and left the cave after taking a deep look at her. Chapter 594. Leah was taken aback. Elvis had already brought the 3 children and walked far away. But Leah could not lift his feet to step into the cave. "Congratulate me?" Gu Mengmeng almost died and he did not manage to catch coal. Elvis brought his child away and congratulated him before he left. Gu Mengmeng was waiting for him in the cave. Congratulations for what? It was self-evident. But he did not dare to take that step forward. Afraid, how could he not be afraid? What if he was wrong again? What if it was an empty joy again? What if... Gu Mengmeng said that she did not want him again. The wisest man in the beast world, how ironic was this title now? What could he plan? He could not even protect the female he loved. Leah stood at the entrance of the cave like a statue. He stared at the cave, as if there was a huge force of attraction that was drawing his gaze. But his legs were rooted to the ground and he could not move. "Leah." Gu Mengmeng came out to welcome him. She stood 3 steps away from Leah. Unknowingly, Leah had an urge to escape. "Let's mate." Gu Mengmeng took a step forward and reached out a hand to Leah. "I don't want the 10 years of life you have left. I want you to accompany me for a long time." Leah did not say anything. He just took a step forward and grabbed Gu Mengmeng's wrist. He pulled her into his arms and hugged her tightly. He wanted to rub her into his bones and blood. Gu Mengmeng could clearly hear that Lee's breathing was trembling. Every cell in his body was boiling. But his throat was tightly locked and he could not say a word. Gu Mengmeng hugged Leah back and gently placed her face on Lee's chest. She said, "I did not understand in the past how decisive a male can be when he falls in love with a female. If I had known earlier, I would not have believed the nonsense about you and Nina. In the end, I did not trust you enough. But because of this reason, I tortured you for so long. I'm sorry, I was wrong." Leah shook his head and kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips. She was not wrong. How could she be wrong? She was his Mengmeng. It was his fault. It was his fault for thinking that everything was under control. It was his fault for putting her on the scale. It was his fault for not protecting her properly and letting go of her hand for so many inexplicable things. Torture? What kind of torture was that? She had never been able to harden her heart to him, so that he would not collapse in despair. All the pain was his own fault. But she had been kind enough to hold his hand again and again in the abyss of despair. What did she do wrong? Why should he apologize? Leah carried Gu Mengmeng horizontally and strode into the cave. Leah placed Gu Mengmeng down gently on a beast's skin beside the fire. He flipped over and ran his fingers across Gu Mengmeng's little face, tidying the stray hair on her face. Mengmeng, is it really you? Gu Mengmeng held Li's hand and placed it on her cheek. Her eyes reflected the light from the fire, bringing with it some warmth. In this world, who else dares to snatch my man? Leah smiled to hide the glint in his eyes. It's useless even if you snatch, you can't. Gu Mengmeng wrapped her arms around Li's neck. She pursed her lips and continued, I inherited all of Snake's abilities and am now a little poisonous person. If I mate with you, it might cost you your life, so I can only use another method to mate. Do you mind? Leah kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips deeply. He said in a hoarse voice, I don't mind being a beast pet for a lifetime. What else would I mind? Digression, there are 2 versions here. Babies who want to see Li's digression can go to the VIP group to find the shared file. Babies who only accept 1v1 can read the main text. Verification group, 4927799273. After entering the group, please contact the corresponding administrator to verify your fan value and enter the VIP group to see the other version. Chapter 595. Gu Mengmeng turned around and gently pushed Leah up. The 2 of them sat side by side. Gu Mengmeng's fingers were slightly cold. She pointed at Li's brows and stared into his eyes. She confirmed once again. Mating is the combination of 2 people's energies. I will extract a drop of your blood from your brows and send it to my heart. We can still complete the mating contract. If you want to regret, it's still not too late. Leah smiled gently and dotingly. He held on to Gu Mengmeng's wrist with one hand and hooked her chin with the other. Get me, possess me, then, allow me to give you all my loyalty. Gu Mengmeng, do you know how long I have been waiting for this day? Gu Mengmeng returned a smile. She gathered the breath of the Beast King on her fingertips and pointed at Li's brows. A drop of blood hovered in front of Gu Mengmeng's fingertips. Gu Mengmeng slowly sent the drop of blood into her heart and into her body. Gu Mengmeng bit the tip of her tongue and took the initiative to cover Li's lips. A bloody kiss announced the completion of the mating process. Li's head was dizzy and his gaze started to drift off. Gu Mengmeng stood up and tidied up her messy clothes. She then gently caressed Li's sleeping face. She chuckled. I still dominated you in the end. But I don't want to be conflicted anymore. Who knows which will come first, tomorrow or an accident? I don't want to regret it anymore. Gu Mengmeng instructed the little snake to call Elvis and the children back. Elvis did not go far. He was guarding the entrance of the cave for Gu Mengmeng. Seeing the little snake, he brought the 3 little ones back. But the moment they entered the cave, Elvis was stunned. What situation was this? Gu Mengmeng was sitting there perfectly fine. But Leah was unconscious? Gu Mengmeng smiled awkwardly. Elvis frowned and sighed. I told him not to listen so much. Look, he really can't listen anymore. Cough. Gu Mengmeng choked. She smiled awkwardly and did not reply. Bring Leah along. Let's set off. Qishuan's poison cannot be delayed any longer. Elvis picked Leah up with one hand and hugged Gu Mengmeng with the other. Then let's return to solder first. Gu Mengmeng nodded and did not say anything else. Once Elvis exited the cave, a large group of snakes followed behind him. At first, it was the colorful snakes, but the further they walked out of the valley, the more snakes followed, and the thicker they were. By the time they reached the entrance of the valley, even Wabi-I had caught up. Gu Mengmeng looked back and frowned. She was no longer afraid of snakes, but if she brought all of them out, the world would be in chaos. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis, signaling him to put her down. He took 2 steps back and looked at the snake beasts behind him. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng had stopped, the snake beasts that could transform into human form did the same, while those that could not yet stood upright and looked at Gu Mengmeng attentively. Chapter 596. Saintess. One of the snake beasts took a step forward and said, "What should we do after you leave?" Gu Mengmeng scanned the crowd of snake beasts and realized that other than Wabi, there were almost no other orcs above the 3rd level. Was it because Snake killed Ellie and caused the mating contract to backfire? There was a gap in the number of powerful warriors in the Snake King Valley. No wonder Ellie dared to lay his hands on her. She gambled that Snake would not sacrifice the lives of more than half of the powerful warriors in the Snake King Valley for a dead Gu Mengmeng. Unfortunately, she lost. In Snake's eyes, nothing was more important than Gu Mengmeng. Thinking of Snake, Gu Mengmeng frowned and her heart ached faintly. "After I escort the Saintess to Saint Nazir, I will come back to guard the Snake King Valley for him." Wabi took a step forward and transformed into a half-orc. His snake body stood erect and was at least 3 stories tall. He looked down at the crowd of snake beasts and asked, "Any other questions?" Gu Mengmeng glanced sideways and smiled faintly. She knew that the him Wabi was referring to was not herself but Snake. The snake beasts all lowered their bodies to show their obedience. Wabi then transformed into a human again and stood behind Gu Mengmeng. "Let's go." Gu Mengmeng nodded and led Elvis, Leah, Wabi, and the 3 buns out of the Snake King Valley. The moment they came out, they saw Ian standing guard at the entrance. He was already sick, but now he looked even more haggard. Gu Mengmeng walked forward and bit her finger. Then, she squeezed out a drop of blood and placed it on Ian's lips. "It has been hard on you during this period." Ian was taken aback. He wanted to wipe off the blood on his lips but realized that the blood had already seeped into his mouth. Moreover, it took effect quickly and all the blood in his body seemed to have been ignited. That boiling feeling was painful but also a form of release. The feeling of being unable to use any strength for a month was gradually disappearing. She neutralized the poison in him? Gu Mengmeng knew that Ian had many doubts but she did not want to explain. She just said, "Let's go to Sauter first. I will tell you the rest slowly." Ian didn't say a word and just followed behind Gu Mengmeng silently. He was wary and hostile towards Wabi. Wabi could not be bothered with him. A mere 3rd-level bird, if Snake had not instructed him to keep it alive, it would have long become a dish in his stomach. He didn't want to compete with a meat dish. Gu Mengmeng's current physique was much better than before, so the group traveled much faster than before. That night, Leo woke up. Rubbing his head, the first thing he did when he opened his eyes was to look for Gu Mengmeng. Turning his head, he realized that she was sitting beside the fire in a daze. Lee's gaze subconsciously softened. He propped himself up and sat beside Gu Mengmeng, wrapping his large tail around Gu Mengmeng's waist and calling out softly, "Mengmeng." Gu Mengmeng glanced sideways at Leah. After regaining her senses, she smiled and said, "You're awake." Lee's hand gently caressed Gu Mengmeng's little face. His gaze landed on her left ear and he smiled in an extremely gentle manner. There was a snow-white fox lying on Gu Mengmeng's ear. Its head was on the earlobe and its face was facing upwards. It looked as if it was running towards Gu Mengmeng's ear along the earlobe. Its large furry tail occupied the outer part of Gu Mengmeng's ear. It looked like an exquisite earring and was very lifelike. "So, that wasn't a dream. That's great. Aside from the topic, you want to ask why Lee's mating mark was not on her heart, right? This is my final preference for my son. If Lee's mark was on her heart, what would Elvis do? Also, don't worry, Gu Mengmeng had enough self-protection abilities now. She didn't need to rely on mating to protect herself. So the males around her were only Elvis and Leah. There wouldn't be another one. As for Snake, who had left a mark on her neck, he was the 0 that I had previously revealed in the group. 5 partners. Chapter 597. 3 days later, Gu Mengmeng and the rest returned to Sauter. Sandy and Colin carried Qi to the stone house Gu Mengmeng was staying in and handed him over to her. Gu Mengmeng used her own blood to feed Qi, but he still did not wake up. Gu Mengmeng frowned, not understanding. According to Snake's memories, her blood should have the effect of detoxifying poison. The poison that Ellie used on the little wolves should be the same. Since it could save Heda and his brothers, there was no reason why it could not save Qi. Dylan knew that Gu Mengmeng had returned and rushed over immediately. After discussing with Leah, he came to see Gu Mengmeng. He was a little hesitant, but still said, apart from Ellie's snake poison, there might be something else on little Master Qishuan's body. Gu Mengmeng asked, what do you mean? Dylan said, Cole is never a person who puts all his eggs in one basket. He is used to having double insurance for everything. If he dared to send little Master Qi back to you, it means that he is confident that he will not wake up. And a suspicious person like him would not place all his hopes on others. Gu Mengmeng frowned, hugging Qi as she fell into deep thought. Gu Mengmeng was now very clear on how Cole had presented the treasure to Snake. Snake was not a fool, he knew that Cole was only using him as an insurance mechanism, but he still sent Ellie to assist Cole. Firstly, he was only interested in the messenger of the beast deity at that time to find out some information about the other world from her, and did not care much about it. Secondly, in Snake's eyes, Cole's methods were really too lackluster. No matter what tricks Cole had up his sleeves, he would always have a way to make him send Gu Mengmeng to the Snake King Valley obediently. But judging from Cole's actions, he was indeed not someone who only had one set of plans for doing things. So, to save Qi, I have to find Cole. Gu Mengmeng thought about everything in the past, her brows furrowed. Heda and his brother surrounded the unconscious Qi, sniffing him and licking him. Heda nudged Qi, saying, Xian. Don't sleep, hurry up and play with us. Look, Lu, Wu, and I have all evolved into half-beasts. You should also quickly get up. Once you wake up, you can evolve. Qi did not move and continued to lie there quietly. Jiaoyu sighed. He was clearly a young child, but he had an air of maturity about him. He lightly patted Heda's shoulder and said, Don't worry, I believe that mother will definitely have a way. Kanwa ran down from the bed to Gu Mengmeng's side. He looked up at her and said, Mummy, how can we wake Qi up? You are the great messenger of the beast deity, you must know, right? Gu Mengmeng squatted down and gently caressed her son's little face. Looking at his clear and expectant eyes, Gu Mengmeng still shook her head. Mummy also doesn't know how to wake Qi up, but Mummy will definitely do my best. Believe in Mummy, alright? Kanwa nodded heavily and said, I believe in Mother. Gu Mengmeng smiled. When her gaze met Qishuan's, she frowned again. Chapter 598. Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment before her eyes suddenly lit up. She hugged Kanwo and kissed him. You are indeed my son. So smart. Kanwo was bewildered by the kiss and blushed for a while. She pretended to be calm and said, Of course. With that, Kanwo ran back to Heda and the rest and surrounded Qi, trying to wake him up. Gu Mengmeng asked Leah to send Dylan off, before walking into another room and lying on the bed. Elvis accompanied her over. Seeing that she was lying down, he asked, Do you want to sleep for a while? I'll wake you up when Leia is done with dinner. Gu Mengmeng shook her head. When I was unconscious, I dreamed of the beast deity. Elvis frowned and said, Is there a deviation in your behavior? Which part? Elvis's nervousness stemmed from the analysis Leah had given him. The beast deity had pointed out and corrected the messengers' deviations in their actions in the dream realm. If the messengers did not make any changes or make amends to reverse their mistakes, they might very well anger the beast deity and be punished. He was extremely afraid of that punishment, because no matter what it was, he could not let Gu Mengmeng get hurt. So, if there was any deviation in Gu Mengmeng's actions, even if she asked him to dig Snake up and die in his place, he would definitely do it. Gu Mengmeng patted Elvis's arm lightly, signaling him not to be nervous. Then, she said calmly, he is not here to warn me, but to greet me. He also told me to maintain a kind heart. Elvis looked at Gu Mengmeng doubtfully and asked, are you sure? Did you miss anything? Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, I won't. You also know that after I inherited Snake's ability, my memory became especially good. Elvis thought about it and felt slightly more at ease. He held Gu Mengmeng's little hand and asked, so you want to look for the beast deity in your dreams again and ask for advice on how to save Qi? Gu Mengmeng nodded. Elvis was a little dejected. He sighed and said, I used to think that I could do anything, but why do I always feel helpless now? Dream. How good would it be if I could follow you into the dream? Gu Mengmeng chuckled. Hubby, you have already done very well. Gu Mengmeng knew that Elvis's confidence had been destroyed by Snake until there was nothing left. Especially after Ellie's suicide attack, Elvis had been shrouded in a sense of helplessness. Unfortunately, at this moment, there was a fox on her ear. Gu Mengmeng felt apologetic and guilty towards Elvis, but she did not know how to comfort him. Forget it, I'll deal with my son first. Gu Mengmeng allowed Elvis to hold her hand. She then slowly closed her eyes and said, Hubby, I feel very relieved that you can stay by my side and accompany me. Elvis slowly bent down and planted a kiss on Gu Mengmeng's forehead. I will always be by your side. Gu Mengmeng nodded. The sunlight shone through the window gently onto Gu Mengmeng's face. It was warm and comfortable. Elvis's warmth could be felt from her palm, full of support. Gu Mengmeng gradually fell asleep in a very peaceful environment. Her faith supported her to find that white fog no matter what. Gu Mengmeng's brows were tightly furrowed as she fell asleep. Chapter 599. Gradually, Gu Mengmeng's vision was filled with a blurry and hazy whiteness. Gu Mengmeng tried shouting, Beast deity! Beast deity! There was no reply, not even an echo. It was dead silent and lifeless. Gu Mengmeng groped her way deeper into the fog, but other than the white fog, she could not see anything else. Beast deity! Beast deity! Gu Mengmeng continued shouting, but still received no reply. Gu Mengmeng frowned. Did she walk into the wrong door or was the beast deity not at home? Just as she was feeling suspicious, a cold hug enveloped Gu Mengmeng from behind. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and instinctively released her beast pressure, but the person behind her was not overwhelmed by it. Instead, he chuckled and said, not bad. You know how to use the weapon I left for you to protect yourself. Gu Mengmeng was taken aback and her whole body froze, unable to move. Tu Meng. With that, a hand reached out from behind Gu Mengmeng, palm facing up, in front of Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng raised her trembling hand and clenched it into a fist, slowly placing her little hand on that palm. Was it magical? Just by hearing the voice and looking at that hand, Gu Mengmeng could actually recognize who was hugging her. Snake? Is that you? Gu Mengmeng did not turn back, only asking softly. The large hand closed gently, firmly holding Gu Mengmeng's little hand in his palm. Then, with a light pull, Gu Mengmeng spun half around, standing face to face with the person behind her. Looking up, Gu Mengmeng saw that familiar devil-like face. His dark green eyes were shining with a cold light, but Gu Mengmeng did not feel afraid anymore. That natural aura and arrogant stance only made Gu Mengmeng feel at ease. She took the initiative to jump into Snake's arms, and the tears that Gu Mengmeng had been holding in since she woke up finally fell. Snake was taken aback. He held Gu Mengmeng's little chin and asked, You were already ugly, but you look even uglier when you cry. I will cry, I will be ugly. If you don't like it, don't look. Gu Mengmeng was a little willful, deliberately crying even louder and uglier. Snake's gaze was gentle as he caressed Gu Mengmeng's little face and said, I like you no matter how ugly you are. You know, you're the only color in my eyes. Hearing Snake's words, Gu Mengmeng stopped crying. She sniffled and lowered her head to avoid Snake's gaze. She said softly, liking me is probably the most unfortunate thing in your life. Heh, this is the first time in 1,000 years that I've met with misfortune. In the end, I lost my life. You shouldn't have saved me in the first place. Just let me fall from the sky and die. Snake pinched Gu Mengmeng's little face and said, meeting you is not something unlucky. The beast deity pitied me for being shackled for 1,000 years and sent you to save me. It's just that. I can't bear to force 1,000 years of loneliness on you. Gu Mengmeng looked up and said, then why don't you discuss with the beast deity and come back? I'll return everything to you. Will you come back? Snake chuckled and said, yes, I can't go back. But the beast deity promised me that as compensation, he would let me find you in another world. Gu Mengmeng sniffled and asked, what do you mean? Snake cupped Gu Mengmeng's little face and bent down to accommodate her height. He looked straight into her eyes and answered, I will go to your world and find you before you transmigrate. Then I'll enjoy you all to myself. Digression, this can be considered a preview. At the end of this article, I will release a digression saying that Snake was reborn into the era that Gu Mengmeng was in. Then, as a modern person, he wooed the pre-transmigrated Gu Mengmeng and made her stay in the modern world. From a timeline perspective, this matter is not valid. Because if Snake had stopped Gu Mengmeng from transmigrating, then he would not have gotten to know Gu Mengmeng and would not have been reborn. But, yeah, let's just treat it as the concept of a parallel universe. Snake is a character that makes my heart ache. I will tell everyone without hesitation that in the entire article, Snake is the one who makes my heart ache the most. Compared to Snake, what does torturing Leah previously count as? Chapter 600. Gu Mengmeng's eyes were watery, as if she didn't quite understand what Snake meant. Snake smiled as he pinched Gu Mengmeng's little face, so, I am freed from this shackle. To me, death means that my happiness has just begun. Tu Meng, I left everything to you, not to let you live on for me, but to let you live on properly. Don't use your messy memories to mess up your life, just live on your own terms. Laugh when you're happy, cry when you're sad, fight back if someone bullies you, kill if someone plots against you. This is the reason why I left everything to you. My Tu Meng is still most suited to be carefree. Gu Mengmeng's nose felt sour as she punched Snake's chest. Are you praising me? Why does it sound so awkward? Snake held on to Gu Mengmeng's little fist, placing it in his hand carefully, as if he was admiring a precious piece of art. As if he wanted to remember every line on Gu Mengmeng's palm, he looked at it carefully and seriously, then said, I don't have much time, so you have to remember my words well. Gu Mengmeng nodded, pursed her lips and didn't say a word, quietly listening to Snake's confession. After I injected my abilities into your body, I shared your memories. I know, from beginning to end, you treat me as a friend, not as a male. Although it's a pity, it's too late to change anything. In that world, after I found you, I will never let such a thing happen again. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Snake with her sparkling eyes. Snake, I like you. Snake was stunned for a moment, then he smiled. My Tu Meng is so soft-hearted and gentle. I know it's fake, but I still thank you for saying that. Gu Mengmeng shook her head, wanting to explain. But Snake didn't give her the chance, his body had already started to become transparent. Snake seized the time to explain, you are Gu Mengmeng, not Snake. Be it the Snake King Valley or Wabi, it's not your responsibility. You have no need or obligation to act as my substitute in front of them. Live your own life, use my powers, and protect yourself well. Tu Meng. I like you, Tu Meng. Thank you, Tu Meng. Goodbye, Tu Meng. Snake completely disappeared before Gu Mengmeng's eyes. No matter how hard Gu Mengmeng tried to grab at him, she could not find a single trace of him. Her chest tightened as she squatted on the ground, wailing loudly. Don't you like Snake? Did she only see him as a friend? That's right, before Snake shared a memory with her, she really only saw Snake as a friend. But later on, when she obtained Snake's memories, she clearly knew how much Snake liked her and how much he treasured her. All the good things he did for her, every scene of the two of them together was like a movie that was destined to separate, replaying in her mind. The sweeter it was then, the sadder the ending was. Gu Mengmeng knelt on the ground and shouted, "Snake, I don't dislike you. I just didn't have time to tell you. I like you. I like you. I like you." Chapter 601. I'm here. Where is he going to find me? Gu Mengmeng roared. That person was still very gentle and said with a loving voice, "He will go to your original world to find you before you transmigrated. He will be happy, so don't cry, alright?" Gu Mengmeng wiped her tears and finally saw the person in front of her clearly. He did not have a white beard or hair and looked to be in his 30s. But his eyes were as tolerant and calm as the ocean. It was a kind of wisdom and an indescribable love. "You are the beast deity?" Gu Mengmeng asked. The man nodded and said, "Yes, it's my first time meeting you, my daughter." Gu Mengmeng blushed and burped. She sniffled and asked, "You know I was spouting nonsense in the beast world?" The man chuckled and said, "How is it nonsense? If you are willing to be my daughter, then you are my daughter. I don't mind." Gu Mengmeng sniffled and tilted her head. "I mind." The man did not insist and said, "I know you came to find me because of Qishuan's matter. But I can't help you." Gu Mengmeng was stunned for a moment before she immediately knelt down and hugged the man's arm. "Father, you are my biological father. You have to save your grandson." The man did not know whether to laugh or cry at Gu Mengmeng's reaction. He gently rubbed her little head and said, "It's not that I don't want to save him, but the people of the beast world have their ways. If I forcefully interfere, it will only make things worse. All I can do is to guide him." Gu Mengmeng looked up and said, "Can you speak like a human? I don't understand." The beast deity was silent for a moment before he sat cross-legged beside Gu Mengmeng and said, "You inherited Snake's memories, so you should know about the previous messenger of the beast deity?" Gu Mengmeng nodded and said, "Yeah, I know some parts. It probably started after she found Snake's father. I don't know what happened before that." The beast deity still looked like he wanted to smile but did not. He strangely exuded the light of a deity who loved the world. Gu Mengmeng sat beside him and felt like she was about to convert to Buddha. The previous messenger of the beast deity is called Wang Xiaoxin. In your world, she is the honorary advisor of the Book of Changes Association. The reason I chose her back then was because she had a deep understanding of metaphysics. And her mission is to bring faith to the beast world. Gu Mengmeng digested the beast deity's words. Actually, before this living beast deity appeared in front of her, Gu Mengmeng was an absolute atheist. She never believed in gods or Buddhas. Otherwise, why didn't the gods and Buddhas show up to help her when she was suffering all those years ago? She thought that she was a kind person and had never done anything evil, but she was going to be abandoned by her parents and live a life of hunger and cold. But now, there was a living god sitting in front of her, surrounded by a halo, sitting cross-legged in front of her, chatting and explaining to her in a down-to-earth manner. This made Gu Mengmeng start to waver. Could she still say that there was no God in this world? Then who the F***ck was sitting in front of him? But even though she was shaken, the so-called metaphysics was just a scam in her heart. An honorary advisor of the Book of Changes Association? He's just a film that says what people say and what ghosts say. Chapter 602. F********. Gu Mengmeng looked at the beast deity with a sullen expression. "Are you mocking me for being a bad student?" The beast deity shook his head gently. "Of course not. I'm telling you why I can't save Qixuan." Gu Mengmeng pursed her lips. For her son, she would not mind even if he said she was born an idiot, much less mocking her for being bad at her studies. The beast deity continued smiling. When she came to the beast world, she was competing with a few top psychologists in hypnosis. Gu Mengmeng looked at the beast deity in surprise. Can hypnosis be competed? Find a few people and see who can rush the others first. The beast deity shook his head. It was a few hypnotist masters. They entered the same room at the same time and hypnotized each other. They were all professionals. It was not an easy task for anyone to hypnotize anyone else. A few authoritative figures who refused to submit to each other used this method to determine the winner. It was a little like a sword fight on Mount Hua, right? Gu Mengmeng glanced sideways at the beast deity. She chuckled. Deities also watch television dramas? Are you also a Jin Yong fan? The beast deity rubbed his nose. I want to choose a suitable person from that world to guide the people of the beast world. How can I do that without doing some research on that world? Gu Mengmeng snorted. Your method of research is watching television dramas? The beast deity cleared his throat. He was clearly a little embarrassed. But he was not angry. He continued. I used that hypnosis to bring Wang Xiaoxin to the beast world. But she thought that everything in the beast world was just the effects of hypnosis. She fought with all her might, trying to wake up from the hypnosis. She tried to find a way to free herself. In her eyes, she believed that everyone was a hallucination in the hypnosis. Gu Mengmeng frowned. She recalled Wang Xiaoxin's resolute and merciless attitude towards everyone in her memory. So it was not because she was cruel by nature, but because she believed that everything was an illusion. All the things she was unwilling to do, but still did, in the hope that she would not be able to withstand the torture and force herself to wake up. The beast deity continued. Afterwards, she became more and more crazy. If she was allowed to continue, she would destroy the entire beast world. So, I entered her dream and told her the way to free herself from this hypnosis. As long as she can do it, I will let her go. Gu Mengmeng's understanding of hypnosis was limited to the scenes in television dramas, such as forcing someone with amnesia to recall some past they did not want to face, changing other people's lives, and hypnotizing that damn fatty to dance in The Return of the Condor Heroes. The beast deity said, she believed my words and thought that this was the key to breaking the hypnosis. So she did everything I asked of her. It's just that, he used the most ruthless and cruel method. Gu Mengmeng looked up and said, for example, having a son with the bloodline of a beast king with a cold-blooded snake beast, then using him as a key to transmigrate back to the present world? The beast deity nodded and said, in the end, I still overestimated the term maternal love. It turns out that TV dramas are all lies. Not all mothers are willing to change themselves for their children. Chapter 603. The beast deity shook his head and said, she is an expert in psychology. Even if it was me, she would be able to tell if I lied in front of her. So, what happened to Snake is true. Gu Mengmeng frowned and remained silent for a while before asking, so, did she go back? The beast deity looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly and shook his head again. She stayed behind for Snake's father. Gu Mengmeng stared at the beast deity in shock and frowned. Didn't she think that everything was an illusion? She could even bear to leave her own son, how could she? The beast deity was still smiling, but there was a tinge of disappointment in his smile. He said, are you interested to hear what happened after Snake was born? Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip but still nodded. The beast deity said, Snake's memory should have stopped when his father threw him into the cold lake. Gu Mengmeng nodded to acknowledge it. The beast deity continued. His father threw the snake egg into the cold lake in front of Wang Xiaoxin and told her that he was different from other males. He would not let her leave him just to grieve in silence because of her desire. He said that since Wang Xiaoxin had provoked him, she could forget about shaking him off for the rest of her life. If Wang Xiaoxin wants to go back, she can either bring him along or kill him. Gu Mengmeng lowered her eyes and remained silent for a moment. She thought of the black wolf at home. He had said something similar. If this is a dream, please kill me before I wake up. Don't let me face a world without you alone. That is more torturous than death. The beast deity paused for a moment and did not continue. He just looked at Gu Mengmeng, who seemed to be deep in thought, as if giving her time to slowly recall. After a long while, Gu Mengmeng finally opened her mouth and said, since she was sure that everything was a hallucination after the hypnosis, then once she wakes up, Snake's father will definitely disappear. No one can bring a person from a hallucination into reality. If Wang Xiaoxin is a rational person, she will definitely think of this. Bring him away, impossible. Kill, reluctant. So she decided to stay behind? The beast deity chuckled and shook his head. No, she decided, to kill him. Gu Mengmeng was stunned. She looked up at the beast deity and asked, you clearly said that she stayed behind for Snake's father. The beast deity gave Gu Mengmeng a reassuring smile before continuing. She personally plucked off the scales protecting Snake's father's heart, then used her sharp claws to pierce through his chest. Snake's father's blood splattered all over Wang Xiaoxin's face. Wang Xiaoxin stared at the bloody hole in his chest and her own bloodied hand. On the other hand, Snake's father smiled and hugged her in his arms, kissing her tears and saying to her, this is good too, at least, until death, I did not lose you. Gu Mengmeng widened her eyes, unable to say a word. Having inherited Snake's memories, she knew very well how stubborn the males in the beast world were towards love. Compared to death, they were more afraid of their beloved females being harmed. Back then, when Barit and Quinton knelt on the platform of the deity's punishment, they would rather be dried and skinned than move, because they were afraid that the person in their hearts would be punished. Later on, it was the same for Snake. Although Ellie's last bite was the poison from her suicide, Snake actually had a way to neutralize it. Aside from the topic, today's update was over. Chapter 604. However, the process of detoxification was a little complicated, and she would have to endure the pain of the poison for a long time. Furthermore, even if the poison was detoxified, without the self-healing ability of a beast king, her legs would still be crippled. So Snake gave his life to her, not to ensure that she would not die, but because he could not bear to let her suffer, that's all. Gu Mengmeng remained silent and did not speak. She only felt a tightness in her chest. She couldn't tell if it was because of Snake or because of Snake's memory reacting to the entanglement between her father and mother. The beast deity patted Gu Mengmeng's shoulder lightly, then continued, the death of Snake's father was a huge blow to Wang Xiaoxin. She didn't understand why she felt so sad and painful even though she knew it was an illusion. At that time, she was ill and couldn't get up. She closed her eyes but couldn't sleep. I knew that she wanted to sleep so that she could see me, so I helped her sleep and let her enter the dreamland to find me. Gu Mengmeng looked up at the beast deity, waiting for his next words. A trace of melancholy appeared on the beast god's face. He sighed and continued, she asked me if all of this was an illusion. I repeated what I had told her the first time we met. I told her that the serpent's egg was not broken. It was at the bottom of the cold pond. If she wanted to go back, I could help her retrieve the egg. But she shook her head. She said, she wasn't going back, she wanted to stay in the beast world. Gu Mengmeng looked at the beast deity in confusion. She did not understand what Wang Xiaoxin was thinking. In order to go back, she would not hesitate to use her own son as a key. In order to return, she did not hesitate to kill her own male. But when everything was ready, she still wanted to stay. The beast deity looked at Gu Mengmeng and asked, unbelievable, right? I also feel very strange. So I asked her why she decided to stay. Her answer was, I want to avenge whales. Gu Mengmeng looked at the beast deity speechlessly. The beast deity just smiled back at her quietly and said, whales is Snake's father, Wang Xiaoxin's male snake beast. Gu Mengmeng replied, but didn't she kill him with her own hands? Who else do you want to take revenge on? The beast deity nodded and smiled bitterly. Look for herself. Gu Mengmeng was stunned as she looked at the beast deity in confusion. The beast deity continued, on one hand, she firmly believed that the beast world was an illusion, on the other hand, she was so tormented by Whale's death that she could not breathe. Her rationality told her that as long as she got rid of this hypnosis, she would be able to free herself from Whale's death. This was because after she woke up, she would gradually forget everything in the dream. But she realized that she wasn't willing to forget Whales. Even if the end result of her memories was this kind of torture, she still wanted to remember Whales and wasn't willing to erase him from her heart. So, he stayed and tortured himself to take revenge for Whales. Gu Meng Meng froze, and when she looked up, her face was already covered in tears. She asked the beast deity in a choked voice, "So, Snake came to see me just now because he was afraid that I would torture myself like Wang Xiaoxin?" It was not a question, but a statement. Chapter 605. The beast deity gently wiped away the tears on Gu Mengmeng's face and said, "Since you understand his painstaking efforts, all the more you should pull yourself together. He will not be at ease if you cry like this." Gu Mengmeng slapped the beast deity's hand away and roared, "Then return him to me. Aren't you the beast deity? You should be able to bring the dead back to life, right?" The beast deity sighed and said, "Do you still not understand? I can't just interfere with the matters of the beast world." Gu Mengmeng said, "I don't understand." The beast deity said, "If I had not interfered back then and told Wang Xiaoxin that the beast king who is related by blood could become her key to transmigrating back, then the things that happened later would not have happened. She would still have met Whales and given birth to Snake, but she would not have pierced Whale's chest with her claws. Perhaps she would have loved her child like those mothers in television dramas and willingly stayed behind to become a better guide. In these 1,000 years, I have been reflecting on this matter, but I still could not help but interfere with the matters of the beast world a few times. In the end, all the matters that I interfered with did not develop in the direction that I had hoped for, and the ending became increasingly bleak. This made me finally understand that everything in this world has its own trajectory. Destroying the original trajectory will not change things for the better and will only lead to destruction." Gu Mengmeng stared coldly at the beast deity and said, "So you are just a damn television watcher. Everyone in the beast world is a serial on the television. Other than watching, you can't turn off anything else, right? You won't care whether others live or die or how tragic their lives are, right?" The beast deity hesitated for a moment before nodding. Gu Mengmeng said, "Then what kind of god are you?" The beast deity was still smiling gently and said, "If a god has to solve every suffering, then what should a god do when he encounters suffering? All I can do is to guide him." Gu Mengmeng stood up immediately and said, "What the hell did you guide him about? You just guided Wang Xiaoxin to kill her husband and son and finally torture herself to death?" The beast deity lowered his head and said, "Wang Xiaoxin brought faith to the beast world and you brought hope to the beast world." Gu Mengmeng roared, "Hope my ass. I'm F** king in despair myself. Who else can I give hope to? My son is unconscious now, and I don't know if he's dead or alive. I don't need him to recover immediately. Just tell me if there's a way to save him. But you're not even willing to tell me a way, and you're still talking to me about hope." The beast deity looked up and accepted Gu Mengmeng's rebuke with a calm expression. He waited for her to finish her sentence like a machine gun before he said softly, "I can tell you how to wake Qi Xian up, but it will only result in him living a life worse than death. It may even implicate more people you care about. For example, Elvis, Leah, and the other 3 little wolves. Do you still want an answer that will make everyone suffer?" Stunned, Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip tightly. If he had said that he would make her pay a terrible price in exchange for Qishuan's awakening, she would have agreed without hesitation. But why did it have to be Elvis, Leah, Heda and his brothers, and even Qi Xian himself who suffered a fate worse than death? The beast deity was still smiling kindly. "Don't worry, trust me. I will not let my grandson die like this. You will find a way to save Qi Xian even if I don't tell you." Aside. Chapter 606. Gu Mengmeng was stunned. She even forgot about her tears as she stared at the beast deity. "Really?" The beast deity nodded. "Deities cannot lie. I can guide you, but I cannot give you an answer. As long as you have a benevolent heart, you will definitely find a way to save Qi Xian. Moreover, don't you have 2 males by your side who are willing to risk their lives for you? They will not bear to let you be so upset. Gu Mengmeng was skeptical. Then, how long will Qi Xian be unconscious for? The beast deity shook his head. This. I don't know either. It all depends on how hard you work. Gu Mengmeng clenched her fists. I wonder what level the mighty beast deity is at. Can you take a beating from me, who has the strength of a beast king? The beast deity was taken aback. He suddenly laughed. This is a dream. Your beast king powers cannot be used here. Moreover, I am just an illusion. You cannot hit me. Gu Mengmeng raised her brows. She swung her fist at the beast deity in disbelief. Indeed, it was as if she was waving her fist in the air. There was no resistance at all. But a wave of dizziness soon followed. Gu Mengmeng felt herself falling downwards. The beast deity's calm and amiable voice rang out above her head. Don't worry, don't be afraid. Your father beast is with you. I am with you. Gu Mengmeng sat up with a loud roar. Her eyes were bloodshot and looked frighteningly hideous. Mengmeng? Leah gently tugged at Gu Mengmeng's little hand. His face was full of worry. Are you, all right? Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah, then at Elvis, who was standing by the bed with a face full of worry. She was stunned for a long while before she regained her senses. Closing her eyes, Gu Mengmeng leaned her head against Lee's chest. One of her hands was held by Leah. She used the other to gently massage her temples. I am fine. I just had a dream. Leah stood up and knelt behind Gu Mengmeng. Then, he gently rubbed Gu Mengmeng's temples with both hands. Elvis sat in Lee's seat and held Gu Mengmeng's hand, saying, You slept for 2.5 days, crying and screaming, and woke up shouting, damn you, and you still say you're fine. Gu Mengmeng clenched her teeth and said, It's nothing, I am just going to see the beast deity. This old thing actually used official language to brush me off. Leah stopped rubbing Gu Mengmeng's temples and asked hesitantly, Did he do anything bad to you? Gu Mengmeng lowered her head and did not say a word, her face gloomy. Leah bit his lower lip and said, Is our family going to have another new male? Gu Mengmeng was taken aback. She looked up at Leah with a face full of question marks. There was a tinge of jealousy in Lee's long and narrow eyes. He said with some resentment, In your dream, you cried and said that you liked him and asked the beast deity to return him to you. You cried so loudly. Tell me, which male did the beast deity show you in your dream to make you fall in love with him so much after one night of sleep? I will help you find him. Gu Mengmeng's expression darkened. She lowered her head and kept silent for a long time before saying, I saw Snake in my dream. He came to bid farewell to me. Elvis and Leah were also stunned at the mention of Snake. That person, even if they could really become a beast king in the future, they would never have the chance to win him. They would forever be the weaklings who would be intimidated by a single glance from him and be unable to stand up. Chapter 607. Gu Mengmeng repeated what happened in her dream to Elvis and Leah and came to a conclusion, Wait. Elvis and Leah worshipped the beast deity blindly. They said that since the beast deity said that he would guide her, then they should just wait for him to guide them. Gu Mengmeng was frustrated, but she could not think of a better solution other than waiting. Rubbing her temples, Gu Mengmeng asked, Did anything happen during the 2 days I was asleep? Leah and Elvis exchanged glances before Elvis said, 3 wolf pups came to see you but I chased them away. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Elvis. Elvis cleared his throat and said, I think you didn't want them to worry for nothing, so I just said that you were frightened in the Snake King Valley and it was too tiring for you to rush back, so you slept for a while longer and asked them not to disturb your sleep. Gu Mengmeng thought about it and felt that Elvis's way of handling things was right, so she nodded and did not pursue the matter. Leah continued, During the time we were in the Snake King Valley, the people from the Snow Fox tribe were not very well behaved. Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah and asked, Why? Want to overthrow me and welcome Cole back? Leah was taken aback and did not understand why Gu Mengmeng would think that way. He just shook his head and said, no, they felt that the people from Saint Nazaire must have some esoterica that you left behind, so they forced Oakley to hand it over. Oakley took advantage of the situation and used this esoterica to threaten the few stubborn old foxes from the Snow Fox tribe. With Oriton and Barit's protection, nothing big happened, but there were many conflicts between the two tribes. The males were fine, but the females from the Snow Fox tribe and the females from Saint Nazaire, the smell of gunpowder was a little too strong. I heard that there were already a few fights and there were casualties on both sides. Gu Mengmeng rubbed her temples and felt helpless. She originally thought that they were going to act, fighting the Qing and restoring the Ming, but in the end, they were going to act, why do women make things difficult for women? Gu Mengmeng knew that although Leah was the witch doctor of the tribe, she had been gone for a month, and if she did not show up for all the trivial matters that had accumulated, Leah would have to spend 10 or even 20 times more effort to settle them. Sighing, Gu Mengmeng invited the few tribe elders into the meeting room. Gu Mengmeng sat on the main seat while Elvis and Leah stood on both sides. Barit and Oriton stood below Elvis, not saying a word. They just stood there quietly. Ian's injuries were slightly lighter than Elvis's and Lee's, so he was more or less recovered now. However, his face still looked sickly and listless, but he exuded a cold aura which made others not dare to belittle him. Standing not far below Leah, he looked down at the few Snow Fox elders standing opposite Gu Mengmeng, who were clearly feeling uneasy. Gu Mengmeng chuckled. Elders, you have worked hard during the 1 month that I was not around. The old men exchanged glances before one of them took a step forward and said, it is our duty to share the burden of the great emissary. I don't dare to say that it was tough. Gu Mengmeng chuckled. Ever since she had a nap, why was it so annoying for people to talk official language to her? Chapter 608. This was the first time the elders saw Gu Mengmeng after she returned. If their previous apprehension and obedience towards Gu Mengmeng was because of her title as the messenger of the beast deity, now, this fear was because of Gu Mengmeng herself. She was still the same person, smaller and more exquisite. But that pair of clear eyes was no longer as lively and clean as before, but emptiness. Yes, it was emptiness. An emptiness with no regard for anything. When Gu Mengmeng chased Cole away, the few elders were still complacent, thinking that this new messenger, who had her emotions written all over her face, was much easier to control than Cole, who was always elegant and never procrastinated. But now, they realized that they were wrong. Was it because Gu Mengmeng had concealed herself too well in the past, or had some earth-shattering changes happened in this 1 month? It was just 1 month. What changes could there be? That was, the few elders exchanged glances, and within a breath's time, they had reached a consensus. Gu Mengmeng was a scheming person, all her previous naivety was just a facade. Was it a test? Gu Mengmeng went to the Snake King Valley to hand over the unstable solder to a mere second-level orc, Oakley, and left behind 2 third-level orcs to assist in suppressing the situation, before bringing Elvis and Leah away without any worries. All this was just a test. The few elders' knees gave way and they knelt onto the ground with a thud. Their bodies started to tremble uncontrollably as they thought to themselves, miscalculation, miscalculation. Great messenger, please calm down, we just want to worship the esoterica properly, we don't have any other intentions. One of the elders said with a guilty conscience. He himself did not know why, but now that he was standing in front of Gu Mengmeng, it was hard for him to maintain his composure. An oppressive feeling spread throughout the entire space, making it hard for him to breathe. Gu Mengmeng laughed and said, worship, I remember that the rule is that only the leader and witch doctor can inherit the esoterica, right? The elder did not dare to raise his head and only nodded in agreement. Gu Mengmeng continued, I have already brought the leader and witch doctor away, what rights do you have to worship the esoterica? The elder was at a loss for words. How would he have the guts to say that he thought Gu Mengmeng, Elvis and Leah might not be able to return, so he dared to force Oakley to hand over the esoterica. Gu Mengmeng saw that the elder did not speak and laughed coldly. Moreover, even if I place the esoterica in front of you, do you know what it says? The exalted one is unbelievably stupid. The elder's body grew colder with every word Gu Mengmeng said. In the end, he trembled so hard that he did not dare to raise his head. Gu Mengmeng did not have the patience to waste her breath on these stubborn old fogies. 1,000 years of experience and stability had caused a huge change in her calmness. No matter how Snake tried to persuade her not to use his identity to think, those 1,000 years of memories had already fused into her body and were starting to affect her personality. If it was in the past, Gu Mengmeng would have stomped her feet in anger at these fellows who took advantage of their seniority. Then, she would watch Elvis or Leah solve these problems for her before turning around to coax her. But now, she only felt that these people were childish and boring. It was neither funny nor infuriating. His emotions were as calm as an ancient well, without any ripples. Chapter 609. Gu Mengmeng's words were just a calm and slow statement, but the few elders were sweating profusely, as if it was a cold and despairing threat. Yes. The elders expressed their allegiance from the bottom of their hearts, and then they retreated. Before leaving, one of the elders plucked up the courage to sneak a peek at Gu Mengmeng. After confirming that he saw the snow fox mark on her ear, he heaved a sigh of relief and followed the rest out. Gu Mengmeng rubbed her temples, her expression cold. Leah sat beside Gu Mengmeng gently, pulling her head towards his chest. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders and rubbed her temples gently, saying, "Are you tired? Actually, you can just leave these things to me." Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "You and Elvis were already severely injured in the Snake King Valley, and had been controlled by snake venom all this while, so your bodies have not been able to recover to their best state, and you were poisoned again because of the mating incident, which was simply one disaster after another." Gu Mengmeng frowned. She really did not know if this selfish habit was passed on to her by Snake, or was it just her nature. In order to not let herself have any regrets, to make herself feel better, she did not care whether Lee's body could take it, and just mated with him. Although it was just a drop of blood from the tip of the tongue, and the poison had been detoxified in time, but Leah at that time was probably physically and mentally exhausted, and was at his weakest. Looking at Elvis, Gu Mengmeng did not mention the mating incident again in the end. She just said, "And how can you be as influential as me? I only need to reprimand you a few words to achieve the desired effect. Why do you need to spend so much effort to plan?" Leah chuckled, alluring and moving, hooked Gu Mengmeng's chin lightly, his eyes filled with deep affection, asking, "Is this because your heart aches for me, and you can't bear to see me work so hard?" Gu Mengmeng tried her best to smile, replying with a single sound, "Yeah." Leah kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips lightly, just a light peck on her lips, like a dragonfly skimming the water surface, before letting go. "Sandy has been here for a long time, and is waiting for you outside. Do you want to meet him?" Gu Mengmeng thought about it, but still nodded. "Shall we accompany you?" Leah asked. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "There are too many things piled up in the tribe. You and Elvis should go and do your own things. Settle everything here as soon as possible. I want to return to Saint Nazaire." Leah nodded and gently rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head. He then looked at Oriton and said, "Go and accompany her." Oriton was expressionless and did not reply. He just walked a few steps forward silently and stood beside Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng shook her head and said, "No need." Sauter had 1,000 things waiting to be done and everything needed manpower to be arranged. "I see that those troublemakers from the Snow Fox clan are quite afraid of Oriton. Let him stay behind to help you deal with things." Leah did not say anything and just looked at Gu Mengmeng quietly. Gu Mengmeng looked down at her own hands. She did not know if it was an illusion, but she felt that her hands were much colder than before. Chapter 610. Gu Mengmeng did it unintentionally, but her words had suppressed all the males present to the point that they could not even lift their heads. She did not know if it was because her emotions were getting colder, or because she had something on her mind that she did not pay much attention to it, but for the first time, Gu Mengmeng ignored Elvis and Lee's emotions. She just lowered her head and walked out of the meeting room. Cole was a 5th-level beast. Elvis was the only 5th-level beast in this room full of people, and he had to use the backfire of the mating contract to defeat Cole. Not mentioning the 3rd-level Leah, Oriton and Barit, there was no need to mention the 1st-level Oakley. Was their protection unnecessary to her now? Until Gu Mengmeng's figure completely disappeared from everyone's sight, Elvis and Leah kept their usual, smiling faces. They frowned deeply and their gazes dimmed. She's forcing herself. Elvis muttered softly. Lee's lips were tightly pursed, his long and narrow eyes were no longer filled with emotions, only worry. I'm afraid that if she continues to hold it in, she will fall sick. Elvis looked at Leah and said, do you have any way to let her vent it out? She can cry or throw a tantrum, if it really doesn't work. I can fight with her. Leah chuckled and glanced sideways, asking, fight? Can you bear to do it? Elvis frowned, pondered for a moment and shook his head. Even if he was not Gu Mengmeng's match now, and even if Gu Mengmeng accidentally revealed a little of her beast pressure, he would instinctively feel fear. But he still felt heartache towards Gu Mengmeng, asking him to extend his claws and fangs at Gu Mengmeng, not to mention others. Even he himself did not believe that he could do it. But Gu Mengmeng's emotions were too well hidden. This made him very flustered, very uneasy and very heartache. When she first woke up, Gu Mengmeng's face was still filled with sorrow and sadness. As time passed, more and more of Snake's memories were awakened in Gu Mengmeng's body. Gu Mengmeng's expression became calmer and her emotions became more and more restrained. A person who always showed everything on her face had now become cold, just like him and Leah in the past. Clenching his fists, Elvis said, if I can't bear to do it, then let her beat me up. As long as she can spit out the anger in her heart, even if she beats me to death, I will still smile. Leah patted Elvis's shoulder lightly and said, if killing a few people can make Mengmeng happy, then I'll go with you and let her kill both of us. It'll be a worthy death. But you clearly know that Mengmeng is not a male. Violence and killing will not make her happy. Elvis sighed and nodded. These few days, even Hedda and the other two could not make her happy. I'm really afraid that she won't be able to hold on if this continues. Lee's gaze was also gloomy as he frowned. Every time Mengmeng is together with Sandy, she is always in a good mood. I hope this time Sandy can also make Mengmeng happier. Elvis glanced sideways and asked, you called Sandy over? Leah smiled bitterly. Isn't it sad? A pet that ascends by pleasing a female doesn't even have a way to make her happy. I have to rely on another female to coax my own. I'm such a good-for-nothing pet. Chapter 6:11. After Elvis finished speaking, he directly walked past Leah. Leah looked at Elvis's back view and smiled. That's why you are Mengmeng's first partner. If it was me, I might not be able to be as tolerant as you. Swaying his tail, Leah glanced sideways at Barit, Oriton and Oakley who had been standing silently behind him. My two guardians and acting witch doctor, are you still in a daze? The three who were called looked up at Leah in silence, each with their own thoughts written clearly on their faces. Leah chuckled, although Mengmeng is very powerful now, this is not a reason for you to neglect taking care of her. Put away that useless inferiority complex and find a new position for yourself. With that, Leah swayed his large tail and chased after Elvis. Reposition. In the past, the most important task was to protect Gu Mengmeng's safety. But now, it seemed like there was no need. In that case, where exactly should their new position be? On the other side, Gu Mengmeng sat on the stairs outside the stone house, looking at Sandy who was feeling rather uneasy. She knew that they could no longer go back. Her mentality had changed along with the 1,000 years of memories. She hadn't forgotten Sandy, but she couldn't play around with her like before. Cupping her face, teasing her that she was the most beautiful female in the world and if she was a male, she would definitely marry her. Now, she could no longer say those words. And after that incident, Sandy had stopped Colin from saving Gu Mengmeng. Even though Gu Mengmeng did not blame her, she still felt extremely guilty. After that incident, Colin was relieved of his duties as a guardian. He did not say anything and only comforted her not to let her imagination run wild. But she knew that every time Colin saw Barit, he could not hide the envy in his eyes. Originally, he could also be a guardian who worked for the messenger of the beast deity. But because of her selfishness, it had turned into this situation today. She felt guilty towards Gu Mengmeng and also towards Colin. Now, Sandy did not even have the courage to hold Gu Mengmeng's little hand when she stood in front of her. You two changed your routine? Gazing at the wind with deep feelings? Leah swayed his large tail and leaned into Gu Mengmeng's arms. He looked at Sandy nonchalantly and teased, or could it be, you have fallen out of favor? Like I said, how can your little stubby tail compete with me? Our Mengmeng still favors us, don't you think so, Elvis? Elvis was not as good at concealing his emotions as Leah was. He only cleared his throat and did not say a word. Oriton followed Leah out and left without saying goodbye to anyone. When Barit came out, he saw Sandy and asked, "Where's Colin?" "He didn't come with you?" Sandy whispered, "Send me there, then he'll go back." Barit understood that Colin was too ashamed to see Gu Mengmeng. Oriton went hunting. He said he wanted to share dinner with us tonight. Oakley and I will go find some yellow gravy and roast the meat tonight, all right? Barit asked Gu Mengmeng. Gu Mengmeng understood that everyone was trying to coax her, but she just could not bring herself to smile. There was no other problem. He raised his head and looked at everyone's expectant gaze. Not wanting to spoil the mood, Gu Mengmeng nodded. All right. Chapter 6:12. As a human, the biggest problem with a mature mentality is that many things can be seen clearly at a glance. Elvis and Lee's accommodating attitude, Oriton and Barit's silent companionship, Oakley's hesitation and Sandy's expectant yet uneasy gaze, Gu Mengmeng could not breathe from the intense concern, but she did not want to let down these people who were concerned about her. Gu Mengmeng smiled and nodded at Sandy, saying, "Come earlier tonight, let's have a gathering." Sandy then smiled and nodded heavily. The moment she turned around, Gu Mengmeng saw tears welling up in her eyes. After Sandy left, Barit and Oakley also set off to look for a beehive nearby. Gu Mengmeng leaned against Lee's chest tiredly, her gaze landing on Elvis's face, looking straight at his worried gaze. She wanted to smile, but the corners of her mouth were too heavy, so she could only give up in the end. Then, she said calmly, "I just can't get used to these 1,000 years of memories, nothing else. You guys don't have to worry so much." Elvis walked in front of Gu Mengmeng, held her hand and pulled her into his arms. He hugged her tightly, wishing he could squeeze all his warmth into her body, then use his own body to replace her in enduring those 1,000 years of boring and dry memories. But, even if he was the first partner, there were still some things he could not do. "No matter how strong you are still my weakness. Not worrying about you might be something I will never learn in this lifetime." Gu Mengmeng hugged Elvis back, gently pressing her face against his chest. She lowered her eyes and said slowly, "I'm sorry." Leah also stood up from the stairs, presenting his handsome and flawless face, kissing Gu Mengmeng who was in Elvis's arms. His gentle smile seemed to condense the mysteries in the deepest part of the ocean, as if he was trying to drown her. His voice was slightly hoarse, but with a different kind of ambiguity. "You clearly know that compared to an apology, we prefer to hear your confession." Gu Mengmeng bit her lower lip, but could not say a word. Her feelings towards Elvis and Leah were undeniable. But she could not say the words "I like you" now. Leah did not force her, he just rubbed Gu Mengmeng's little head and said, "Today is the first time I'm attending a gathering with you as an official partner. If you don't smile, people will think that you were forced to mate with me." Gu Mengmeng looked at the half-genuine, half-fake grievance in Lee's eyes and her gaze softened. "I am the messenger of the beast deity. Who can force me if I don't want to?" Leah walked to the other side of Elvis and placed his arm on Elvis's shoulder. He said with a sad look, you said you liked me on the day of the warrior selection in Sauter, but you ended up crying so hard that you were about to stop breathing when you returned. That night, Oriton came to tease me. He said, "How much does Gu Mengmeng dislike you? You cry like this just because I say I like you." Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah, imitating Oriton's expressionless face and cold tone, and felt that it was rather comical. She finally curled her lips and laughed softly. Seeing that Gu Mengmeng finally smiled, Leah put in more effort and continued, "After that, I fought with him, and guess what happened?" Gu Mengmeng shook her head, indicating that she did not know. Leah raised his head proudly and said, "Although we are both third-level beasts, his brain is not as good as mine, so he naturally could not gain the upper hand." Aside from the topic. Chapter 613. Gu Mengmeng was just about to praise Leah when she heard Elvis say calmly, "I remember when you came back that day, your face was swollen and bruised. You didn't look like you took advantage of me at all." Gu Mengmeng was stunned for half a second before she raised her eyebrows and poked Elvis's chest lightly. Leah was indeed so anxious that he started messing around with Elvis. Elvis hugged Gu Mengmeng and didn't want to bother with him, so he just burrowed into Gu Mengmeng's arms and whimpered for Gu Mengmeng to make the decision for him. "Smile." Gu Mengmeng tried her best to smile. Exposing each other's secrets was one of the tacit understandings they had developed over the years, right? When she was upset, they cooperated and coaxed her. If she still didn't smile, these two fellows would definitely be more worried. "Mummy." Jiaoyu rushed out of the house and directly pounced into Gu Mengmeng's arms. Gu Mengmeng caught hold of her son, who was at the height of her thigh, and carried him up with one hand. She gently tidied his messy hair from running, and rubbed his pair of wolf ears lovingly. Out of the three sons who had evolved into half-orcs, Rigialu's evolution was the worst. Other than having a pair of wolf ears, he still had a tail that had not evolved. Gu Mengmeng guessed that it was because Jiaoyu was the most affected by her genes that his evolution was not smooth. This made Gu Mengmeng feel very apologetic towards Jiaoyu. If it was because of her genes that Jiaoyu failed to evolve and ended up being a half-orc, what would happen to his life? She didn't even dare to think about it. "What's wrong?" Gu Mengmeng tried to make her voice sound gentle. She didn't want her emotions to affect the children. Even though the children were so sensitive, she still hoped to minimize the impact. Jiaoyu's thoughtfulness was just like Gu Mengmeng's in the past. His deep amber eyes were like the warm sun when he smiled. His young face had the unique innocence of a child, and he smiled innocently and warmly. "I eavesdropped on your conversation just now." Jiaoyu covered his little mouth and secretly told Gu Mengmeng this little secret. His eyes were filled with pride and some joy. Gu Mengmeng felt a little unreasonable and didn't understand what Jiaoyu meant. She just said softly, "It's not right to eavesdrop on others." Jiaoyu blinked his eyes and tilted his head to look at Gu Mengmeng. "Why not?" "Daddy Leah said that we should try our best to grasp all the details so that we can control the situation to the greatest extent and protect Mother." Gu Mengmeng turned to look at Leah. Leah cleared his throat and tried to clear his name. "But I didn't teach him to eavesdrop." Jiaoyu frowned and pouted his lips. He looked at Leah with a threatening gaze. Leah gave in and leaned forward, whispering, "Don't betray me, I will teach you the art of deduction." Jiaoyu then nodded in satisfaction, before smiling sweetly at Gu Mengmeng. "Yeah, Daddy Leah never taught me to eavesdrop on others." 3 black lines hung over Gu Mengmeng's head. Jiaoyu was now in her arms, and after integrating Snake's abilities, her hearing was extremely good. Shouldn't he keep this kind of under-the-table operation a secret from her? Wouldn't it be too fake if she pretended not to hear him when he was so close to her ear? Chapter 614. Gu Mengmeng watched as Jiaoyu used his 2 little hands, which could barely reach his ears, to press his ears against his head. His clear big eyes shone innocently like a deer's as he looked at her. She smiled warmly and held Jiaoyu's little hands in her own. So warm." Tell me, after eavesdropping, what happened? Jiaoyu looked as if he suddenly recalled something. His face lit up with excitement as he asked, I heard Mummy and mother-in-law say that they are going to roast meat tonight. Is it the kind with a bonfire? Many people chatting and eating together, and listening to Mummy sing? Gu Mengmeng shook her head gently and said, No, it's just a few familiar friends eating together. Without a bonfire and many people, I will not go and sing. Jiaoyu hung his head low, his face full of disappointment. Oh, Gu Mengmeng used her finger to gently lift Jiaoyu's little face and asked, Why? You want a gathering with a bonfire, many people and singing? Jiaoyu pursed his lips and nodded, saying, I could have participated the previous time. It's all that strange snake's fault for abducting us halfway. I only saw mother singing and dancing from afar, and I was so groggy that I couldn't hear clearly. Gu Mengmeng's heart tightened as she looked at Jiaoyu's disappointed face that looked like he was about to cry. Sweeping her gaze across, she saw Hada, Kanwu, and even the unconscious Qi Xian leaning against the door and peeking their little heads in. The other two little ones immediately shrank back when they saw Gu Mengmeng looking in their direction. After mumbling for a while, they lowered their heads and walked out to stand in front of Gu Mengmeng. When the four of us were trapped in the underground prison, we talked about Mummy's singing and dancing that day the most, and the fragrant roast meat. We all agreed that the next time there is a gathering, we must stick close to Mummy and watch her singing and dancing from a close distance, and eat lots and lots of fragrant roast meat. Mummy, do you think Qi Xian will wake up if our wishes come true? He obviously wants to see Mom sing and dance the most. Hada carried the unconscious Qi Xian in his arms. The three of them were with Qi Xian every day and were like four conjoined babies wherever they went. The three brothers took turns to carry Qi Xian in their arms. Other than Gu Mengmeng, no one else could snatch Qi Xian away from them. Gu Mengmeng thought that perhaps this kidnapping incident had really traumatized her three sons. Looking at the three pairs of expectant little eyes, Gu Mengmeng did not have the courage to shake her head again. Taking a deep breath, Gu Mengmeng turned to Leah and said, Let's make the arrangements. The whole tribe will gather today and we will have a bonfire party at night. Leah smiled and asked, What's the title? Reputation. Asking the whole clan to hold a bonfire party. There had to be something to celebrate. If she directly said, My son wanted to see it, so I made one, although it was the truth, it was still not very good. Gu Mengmeng gently stroked her ears and said, Celebrating the mating of the messenger of the beast deity and the snow fox tribe witch doctor, is this title enough? Leah was taken aback, his gaze gentle. He pulled Gu Mengmeng and Qi Xian into his arms and kissed Gu Mengmeng's lips, deep, lingering and unable to extricate himself. Chapter 6:15. That night, the bonfire lit up the night sky as the entire tribe celebrated. Elvis and Leah sat on either side of Gu Mengmeng, not even glancing at the rest of the people who came to celebrate. With the previous lesson, Barit and Oriton refused to leave Gu Mengmeng's side at all. The two steel-faced men just stood behind Elvis and Leah like bodyguards. Gu Mengmeng tried to persuade them a few times, but the two refused to loosen up. Helpless, Gu Mengmeng ignored them. The three young ones took turns carrying Qi Xian and running around the bonfire party. They kept sharing with Qi Xian how hot the fire was, how delicious the food was, how Mummy was going to sing soon. They kept sharing all the interesting news to Qi Xian, hoping to wake him up. But even though Qi Xian did not react at all, the three young ones were not discouraged at all. They carried Qi Xian and continued flying around. The snow foxes were in high spirits today, especially those females who had previously had conflicts with the females from Saint Nazaire. Their tails were raised to the sky. It was clearly written on their faces that, see, who is the female that the mighty messenger has his eyes on. Sandy only wanted to reconcile with Gu Mengmeng and did not care too much about it. It was just that Mandy and the other newly joined females had to suffer. They were originally the number one beauties of their respective tribes, but after just a few days in Saint Nazaire, they had to wander from place to place with the rest of the tribe. They had to go through migrations and battles, living their lives in fear. It was not easy for them to settle down temporarily, but they still had to fight with these foxes. Gu Mengmeng saw it all, but she could not bring herself to care. The affairs of the women were a mess. Once they stepped into it, they could forget about getting out of it. If they wanted to make a fuss, let them. Anyway, they would not be able to do anything. As long as it did not harm their foundation, Gu Mengmeng could not be bothered. Wabi-I walked in front of Gu Mengmeng and looked at Elvis coldly, then at Leah. Then, he kicked Elvis. Go to one side. Elvis frowned. The moment he looked up, his murderous aura had already leaked out. Wabi-I gave a condescending smile. Elvis's muscles instantly swelled up. Gu Mengmeng's emotions had made him feel vexed for the past few days, but he did not dare to show it in front of Gu Mengmeng. A snake beast at the peak of the 5th level, right? It was a good time to have a good fight. Gu Mengmeng looked at the two of them in a flash and said softly, "Are you two planning to tear Sauter apart?" A battle between level 5 orcs was not the same as when Nina and her partner bullied Sandy in the past. It would be considered a big scene if a few of them fought until their scalps bled. If Wabi-I and Elvis were to fight, there would be no need for the campfire party. They could just bring the construction team to a meeting and discuss the rebuilding of Sauter. Upon hearing Gu Mengmeng's voice, Elvis forced himself to calm down. Without saying a word, he stood up quietly and walked to the side. Wabi-I looked at Leah and raised one eyebrow. Your first partner has already left. Aren't you going to be more sensible? Chapter 6:16. After Elvis and Leah left, Wabi-I took out a fruit from his bosom. It was bright red and looked especially alluring. Gu Mengmeng's eyes welled up. She stared at the fruit for a long time but didn't reach for it. Wabi-I just held the fruit and looked to the side. He wanted to pluck this for you the last time, but I plucked the wrong one. Gu Mengmeng remembered that day when Wabi-I roared at Snake, "If your female wants to eat it, why don't you pluck it yourself?" In the end, he even tried to please Snake and was kicked onto a tree branch by Snake. Wabi-I saw that Gu Mengmeng didn't reach for it after a long time and was rather impatient. He directly stuffed the fruit into Gu Mengmeng's hands and said, "This time, you didn't pluck the wrong one. It's the one at the top and the best and biggest one. Hurry and eat it." Gu Mengmeng held up the fruit and bit into it in a daze. The juice spread to every one of her taste buds. It was obviously very sweet, but Gu Mengmeng felt like she was chewing wax. She frowned but tried her best to smile. Yeah, he has always had good taste. It tastes really good. Wabi-I turned his head again and didn't look at Gu Mengmeng. He just said coldly, "I will be heading back to the Snake King Valley in a while. I will guard the place he used to stay." Gu Mengmeng nodded. Yeah. Wabi-I took a deep breath and continued. Gu Mengmeng, you guard it. Gu Mengmeng looked up at Wabi-I. Guard what? Wabi-I kept his head turned and refused to look at Gu Mengmeng. Guard yourself. Don't get hurt, don't get sick, don't get sad and definitely don't die. Gu Mengmeng was stunned. She didn't understand what Wabi-I meant. Wabi-I said, he once roamed the entire beast world and finally stayed at the Snake King Valley. I think that is the place he likes. Gu Mengmeng searched through Snake's memories but couldn't figure out how he liked the Snake King Valley. She only knew that he was used to that place and had not come out for 1,000 years. But if he didn't like it, how could he get used to it? With that thought, Gu Mengmeng nodded and agreed with Wabi-I's words. But Wabi-I's expression dimmed. But in order to guard you, he abandoned the entire Snake King Valley without hesitation. So, the one he likes the most, is you. Gu Mengmeng's hand trembled as she held on to the fruit. She took a bite and pretended that she was busy, so she did not answer Wabi-I. Wabi-I did not seem to be anticipating Gu Mengmeng's reply as he continued, I will protect the Snake King Valley that he abandoned. He wanted to protect Gu Mengmeng. You will protect her for him. If you dare to hurt yourself in the slightest, I will definitely not let you off. With that, Wabi-I ignored Gu Mengmeng's reaction and directly stood up to leave without looking back. It wasn't that he didn't want to turn around, but he was afraid that when he turned around, he would discover that the familiar pressure didn't come from someone he was familiar with. If that happened, he wouldn't be able to control himself. After Wabi-I left, Elvis and Leah returned to sit by Gu Mengmeng's side. They each hugged Gu Mengmeng, but did not know what to say to comfort her. Just as the atmosphere was thick, a snow fox ran over and bowed respectfully in front of Gu Mengmeng. Then, he said, "Great messenger, there's a male outside the tribe who wishes to see you. Should we let him in?" Gu Mengmeng looked up and asked, "What male?" Chapter 617. Gu Mengmeng did not have much of a reaction, because from the reactions of Elvis and Leah after she told Sandy about this story, there were probably quite a number of people in this world who believed in Usijin. Now that her reputation as the messenger of the beast deity was growing by the day, it was not a new plot for someone to impersonate her old lover. If it was in the past, Gu Mengmeng would have laughed like a pig, or even choked on her own saliva. But now, she just said calmly, "Chase him away, I don't want to see him. He was just a swindler." What was there to see? But in Elvis and Lee's eyes, her blandness had changed. Leah pursed his lips and exchanged glances with Elvis. In just a breath's time, they had already gone through 800 rounds of battle in their eyes. On one hand, this Usijin had memories with Gu Mengmeng that both of them did not have. Even Lee's, "I prefer to hear you confess to me rather than apologize," was derived from this male. In Gu Mengmeng's words, that was her first love. With the return of this male, Elvis and Lee's position would be in jeopardy. On the other hand, Gu Mengmeng did not even want to see him, which meant that she was still angry. If he didn't mind it anymore, why would he still be angry? Gu Mengmeng had been in low spirits during this period of time. The two of them had tried everything they could but could not share her worries. Perhaps Usijin could. In the end, the two of them reached an agreement. Gu Mengmeng was the most important. As long as it could make her feel better, no matter how painful it was, they could endure it. So, Leah waved his tail and laid on Gu Mengmeng's knee. He looked at Gu Mengmeng with his handsome face and asked, "Why not? Didn't you say, those who pass through the door are guests?" Gu Mengmeng did not see Elvis and Leah exchanging glances above her head just now, so she did not know that the holes in their brains had already reached the ends of the earth. Thus, she just said calmly, "He's just a liar, what's there to see?" Liar, didn't Usijin lie to her back then? If not, why would she be picked up by Elvis alone in the lake? Biting his lower lip, Leah held back his jealousy and said, "He lied to my Mengmeng's people, how can we let him off so easily? I want to meet him." Gu Mengmeng looked at Leah in confusion and did not say a word. Elvis held on to Gu Mengmeng's shoulders and pulled her into his embrace. He kissed her hair and said, "We know what to do, don't worry." Why should I be at ease? Gu Mengmeng could not understand. Elvis said, "Bring him in." Gu Mengmeng looked at the jealousy in their eyes. She did not understand at first, but now she understood. Forget it, let them be. His emotions must have put a lot of pressure on the two of them recently. It was good to have someone come to their door to relieve their anger. So Gu Mengmeng nodded and the snow fox who delivered the letter turned and ran off, probably to bring the person in. Gu Mengmeng, who was originally lacking in interest, could not help but be curious. What would the first person to impersonate Usijin look like? Chapter 618. Gu Mengmeng did not know that ever since she inherited Snake's ability, her entire temperament had undergone a huge change. She clearly had a Lolita face, but her entire body was emitting a gloomy aura. She leaned lazily against Elvis's chest, smiling faintly at the males who were approaching her step by step. She did not appear to be perfunctory, but exuded a king's disdain that enveloped everyone. That was Snake's innate temperament, which could not be learned. Gu Mengmeng, as the heir, could at most unleash 80% of it, but it was enough to shock the world. Her gaze was filled with judgment and disdain, as if she was the king of hell, looking coldly at stupid humans. But that round and plump little face gave people a sense of confusion. The most innocent face had the most terrifying gaze. This contrast made people feel an indescribable strangeness, but also an indescribable harmony. Jean had obvious wounds on his body. The most fatal one was an open wound on his chest that stretched from his right shoulder to his left lower abdomen. His flesh was exposed, and although the blood had stopped flowing, it still looked extremely hideous. There were countless other small wounds of different lengths, some were so deep that the bone could be seen. It was as if a large piece of flesh had been bitten off on his leg. Every step he took was painful but tough, and he had imitated the temperament of an iron-blooded Special Forces soldier very well. Gu Mengmeng's expression did not change at all, but Elvis and Leah looked at each other. They looked at Gu Mengmeng carefully, probably calculating. With such injuries, would Gu Mengmeng's heart ache? Then should they teach him a lesson now, or should they immediately bring him to be treated? That person stood beside the bonfire, as if he was not afraid of the blazing flames. But Gu Mengmeng could not only see the surface of a person, she could even easily see through a person's emotions, especially fear. Perhaps it was because the people who had appeared in front of Snake in the past 1,000 years had vividly portrayed all the types of fear in the world. So as long as you were afraid, Gu Mengmeng could see through any minute details at a glance. Fear of fire, that was normal. Before she appeared, the beast world had not seen fire for hundreds of years. Even the people from Saint Nazaire and Sauter took half a year to get used to the flames. This, Jean, was pretty good. To be able to show off to this extent, and to show that he wasn't afraid, he even purposely stood by the fire. He had some guts. "Ah Yun, I'm sorry, I'm late." Jean stared at Gu Mengmeng affectionately, not avoiding her cold gaze and sizing her up. Leah tightened his grip, feeling as if his heart was being clutched. "Ah Yen?" So Kong Moi Ian was her real name? Gu Mengmeng was a fake name? Gu Mengmeng smiled helplessly as she felt the tension radiating from her hands and shoulders. Just how insecure were these two fellows? They had already become partners, so why would they be swayed by the words of a liar? Gu Mengmeng returned Li's hand without batting an eyelid. She inched her head closer to Elvis's chest, using the smallest physical action to appease her two males. Then, she opened her mouth and said only two words, "Purpose?" Jean was stunned, a hint of panic flashed across his face. Although it was only for a moment, it did not escape Elvis's and Li's guarded gaze that was staring at him. Chapter 619. Gu Mengmeng retracted her hand from Li's and slowly closed her eyes. She mumbled one word as if she was sleep-talking and did not say another word. Leah understood that she was handing this liar over to him to deal with. So he swayed his tail, stood up and walked down. He circled around Jean twice before asking, "Wolf beast?" Jean nodded. Leah placed a hand on his shoulder and patted him twice before asking again, "Third level?" Jean nodded again. Leah shrugged his shoulders and swayed his tail as he walked back. He still said one word, "Liar." Jean was taken aback. He took a step forward and said, "I did not lie, I am Jean." Leah glanced sideways at him and said, Jean is indeed third level, but Gu Mengmeng said that he is from the White Tiger Troop. Do you know what a white tiger looks like? Oriton, come over and let him see what a white tiger looks like. With that, Oriton, who had been guarding behind Gu Mengmeng, took a few steps forward and stood beside Leah, looking at Jean face to face. When two people of similar height stood together, the aura of Jean was instantly suppressed by Oriton. Oriton was one of the best among the third-level beasts. Other than Elvis, he had never submitted to anyone else. Although there was a fifth-level Elvis and a Beast King-level Gu Mengmeng sitting in the hall, other than these two strange creatures, in the entire beast world, the peak of third level was already a very powerful existence. After all, most orcs did not have the chance to mate, so third level was a huge hurdle. And there were many orcs who could not even step into the third-level realm in their entire lives. So, not to mention a mere imposter, even if it was Leah. Oriton was not afraid. He swayed his neck left and right as a warm-up. This small action was learned by him subconsciously imitating Elvis. It gradually became a habit and could not be changed. I am here to look for Yen, not to fight. Jean had long heard of Oriton's reputation. Looking at that pair of fierce eyes, he felt really pressured. Oriton was expressionless as he said coldly, "If you can't even beat me, what right do you have to speak to the great messenger?" As soon as he finished speaking, Oriton roared and charged towards Jean. Phrases such as the opponent being injured and having an unfair advantage were worthless in the beast world. Who is to blame if you're injured? If you can't even protect yourself, it's because you're incompetent. Who should accommodate you because you're useless? Sorry, there was no such logic in the beast world. Jean was a level 3 orc after all. Even though his condition was not as good as Oriton's, it was not to the extent of Oriton's one-sided abuse. He dodged, and could occasionally strike back at Oriton. After fighting for a while, there was only a small scratch on Oriton's arm, but Jean was in such a sorry state that it was almost unbearable to look at. Leah stared at Gumengmeng's expression from beginning to end and could not find any trace of heartache, so he was even more certain that she was a liar. But this liar came at the right time. He could relieve everyone's frustrations. So Leah stood up slowly and said softly, "It's all right, no matter if you're real or fake, as long as you can walk in front of Gumengmeng, I'll admit that you're Jean. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories."